Oh, John's not laughing.
Yes, John comes to visit every day.
So the mayor's here now, we can start. I kinda had, I'll be fine. I kinda had a vision that we'd be sitting back there around that table, kinda talking around, but I guess it's just not working out that way with the numbers. And that, you can cut that both ways. And that there's obviously a lot of interest in the subject matter. And I have no particular format for this meeting to take place, but I certainly want the opportunity for anyone who wants to speak and who has something to say that is not necessarily redundant, but does add something to the discourse to be able to talk, because I don't know where we're going on this road, except that we certainly obviously need to go down it somewhere because there's a lot of interest gauged by the fact that we had dialogue at our last meeting and then had this special, it's not technically a meeting to take action on, but it's certainly to gather information. With that said, I didn't require, we don't require anybody just to have to sign up, but if somebody wants to be a spokesman, although we technically called this meeting, it was at you all's, it was at the request of some of the merchants. So if we go ahead and get started, it probably would be good at least starting out that if you, when you're speaking, to come up and address, we may break down from that, but I want to go ahead and start with, if somebody wants to kick us off here, let's see where we go with this. Unless the board got some better idea. Have we heard from Berlin, heard from Stanley?
Haven't heard anything.
So I don't want to speak on behalf of everybody else.
No, you're not speaking on behalf of
Can we,
everybody.
is there any way, can we get like any kind of feedback from you guys on what you thought about since we talked, since we presented to you guys what our concerns were? Is there anything from the board? Is there anything you guys want to say that we should know about? You guys heard a lot from us. Is there anything you guys have to say?
That's the biggest thing Ron and I was concerned about. I'm not sure what you want.
Okay.
I mean, we heard concerns, but we never, what do you want from them? We know we have the board, we know we have Main Street, and we know that with Main Street, those things that go on with uptown, goes through Main Street, or goes whatever, whether it's a festival, or whether somebody needs to have a gazebo, whatever goes through our Main Street program. And so, we just weren't sure what you want.
Okay.
Sure.
My name's Amy Murphy. I'm a part owner in Silver Thread and Golden Hills, the yarn shop uptown, and I haven't ever been to a meeting before, so. I think what we want is better communication between the board and the Main Street program staff and the merchants, because the communication right now is not very good from our point of view. We hear about things through the paper. For example, this meeting's announcement was through the paper and not directly back to anybody who had been in attendance at the meeting before.
So that's not a Main Street, this is not a Main Street meeting.
I understand that.
This is Mr.
I understand that,
Collins'
but the town hall, the last town hall meeting, I understood that there were people who spoke out. And those people were in conversation about having this meeting. Is
Now,
that correct?
now let me tell you this, from our last meeting until today, and the very fact that I did call it at 5:30 instead of 6, and whenever it was pointed out to me that was, it should have been at 6, it had already hit the newspaper for the first advertising, so I was stuck with 5:30. That's my fault. This was kind of a not impromptu, but ad hoc thing.
Sure.
That's not the real issue, though.
No, the real issue issue is that the communication could be better. And we're asking for you to consider ways to help us make it better.
Hey, if I could say something. We are on Main Street, and every one of you know that you are welcome to come to our Main Street meetings, hear what's going on. And we have asked numerous times to have one or two of you all come and be part of it. You know, you could be on the board and be there, and you could be able to come back and feedback. And that seems to have fallen by the wayside, and I don't know what the reasoning is. But if one or two of you were there, you would certainly have the feed in to be able to say, we don't agree with that, or I think this is going on, and this should be how it is, or, oh, what a good idea. And we need your feedback too, you know.
And we want that, and we think there are ways to make that happen, but, for example, when the meetings are, is not easy to find out. I understand now that they're on a regular scheduled basis,
Right.
but they're not on the calendar, they're not on the website for the town.
Are they not on the town?
The agenda is not published in advance, et cetera, et cetera. Those things can make it better.
Is it not, somewhere am I wrong, is it not on our,
The town meetings.
the town meeting, the town, but not Main Street?
I'm not certain.
Okay, so maybe we need to make sure that's on there.
I would love to address Joyce in this issue. Inviting one merchant to join the program is one thing, but we personally have been in business in 4.5 years and have never been invited to participate in a Main Street program board. And we've actually never even been notified that there were Main Street program meetings. The first time we heard about it was at the last town of Alderman meeting where Bob Scott mentioned, hey, there's this Main Street program meeting, and that was like a news flash for us. And so I knew at that moment that I wanted to attend, so I went on all of the town websites to try and find out more about that meeting, and there is no listing for any meeting. And we've never received any minutes from those meetings or any communications that come from those meetings. And I did attend the last one and found it very informative, and I do think that that is
Yeah.
the kind of forum that we want to be a part of, we want to attend those and have our input included. So,
Is there a problem and issue that we can address? I mean, can't we put it on?
Sure.
I mean, that just seems
I
like-
wasn't even aware it was not, so.
Last meeting we had, I was offended when a comment was made that the street has reached out to the merchants, but the merchants haven't come back. Nobody's ever reached out to me. I'm clueless on what's going on,
Now,
and I'm ready to help anytime.
we know you are, Tony, you're always very good at helping. Am I wrong, there was at least 2 people that were being from Venture Local or Virtue, whatever their title was, that had sat on the board a couple times and then did not come back, am I right on that?
I think Rob was on the
He came to 1 or 2?
board. Am I right?
Help me out here.
On the Main Street
On the
board?
Main Street board?
I was on the Main Street board.
No, it wasn't on the Main Street board.
I came to one meeting one time.
Okay.
I didn't know it was on the board.
And you weren't interested? I mean,
We
it
asked-
didn't-
I'll say, we asked Rob to serve when he was president of streets. We've asked other merchants to serve, and they say, no, we don't have time. So lately, no, we haven't asked anybody. I mean, I can call names of other people we have asked, and we haven't reached out because we have.
But do you think that the lack of cooperation from merchants shows there's something that's either not clicking, there's a reason that people either don't want to be a part of it? I mean,
Well, how much cooperation did Rob have when he was president of streets?
well, I can tell you that the meetings we came to was pretty clear that there was a set agenda on what wanted to be accomplished, and nobody cared what we
Well,
said.
Rob was president. How could he set the agenda? I mean, he set the
I'm
agenda.
talking about the Main Street program.
I'm talking about
This-
streets.
And this brings up a
It
great
doesn't make
point.
sense to me.
Mayor Collins started off the meeting with a key word that is a big problem in this town, redundancy. There's so much redundancy. You have the Chamber of Commerce, you have the Main Street program, you have Streets of Franklin, you have all of these groups that are have common, similar initiatives, and there's redundancy all over the place. And as far as streets go, I mean, personally, I think there's a collective agreement that there should be one group that's regarding Main Street that we're all involved with. If you don't want to be involved, you don't want to be involved. As far as my role in streets, I thought there was a lot of redundancy between streets and the Main Street program, and a lot of the initiatives that I proposed were not popular on Main Street. That's, which I'm not.
Just a second. So the first thing is just the basic communication. You absolutely need to know whenever Main Street meeting is. Whether you choose to come to it, obviously, is another issue. Yes,
I
ma'am.
would request the agenda be a part of that.
What-
If possible.
And I would request that the communication be via email, not telling one or two people and expecting them to tell everybody.
Or put in the paper. I mean, that's.
What's
this-
best? What's best?
Joe, I looked into this a little bit, and one thing that I found, and I'm going to refer to council, I believe Main Street's program qualifies under the open meetings law, which would require public notice of all meetings. Is this correct?
The Main Street program in and of itself is not a public body. And just the fact that the town has staff that works with it and on it doesn't make it so. But I think that I'm still working through the issue whether it as an entity is required to have all open meetings on. But the fact that there is a standing appointed committee of this board that is on the board of that program, at least that committee's meetings are required to be announced and advertised in the same fashion at a minimum as this board meeting.
But let's make it self-governing through the mission statement. Main Street program was formed to rekindle and reinforce the economic vitality of the downtown district. I mean, this is a community, there's no rekindling going on.
Okay, well, look, I want you to, we're gonna stay on track. You're suggesting email. You're suggesting
Main
the
Street supposedly
agenda.
has all of the email addresses of all businesses that.
And Summer, I'm gonna ask you first of all, and you can form it on, I mean, is that doable is that easy enough to do? I mean, we can do that.
That sounds like a great solution. I
Right.
mean, right there, we go and communicate.
Now, like I say, whether or not you choose to come,
Then it's on us.
right, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if it could also be possible to post minutes from those meetings in some way, or like you can come by and get them or something,
Sure.
so that.
Summer says yes.
Okay.
For example, Joe, we just found out Monday morning by email, because obviously someone has our email, that we're supposed to be in the window Friday night for Winter Wonderland. And that's just ridiculous to have that little communication, and that's actually the first email that I can ever remember getting regarding the windows.
We've always done the windows for people in
I
time.
know, but you know,
Okay.
merchants come and go. And so when new merchants come, people should welcome them. There should be a committee that says, hey, we have this great program. You might want to be involved in it. It does this, it does this, it does this. And welcome to Franklin. And then everybody would be on the same page, and you'd get emails, and we can all do this together instead of some doing one thing and doing it poorly, someone else doing something else poorly, or they're not cooperating.
I'm gonna try to keep it somewhere in the 4-lane highway anyway. And that's okay, just a second, though. But what I wanna throw out there is the question to talk about is, we've gone back and forth and we've got the Main Street program, and then we had the Streets of Franklin, and then we didn't have the Streets of Franklin, we were under Main Street. And now we effectively have another group which is dedicated to Main Street proper rather than the whole area, correct? And is there, do you all believe that's being formed by necessity, by desire? Do you think that it becomes redundant to have that group as well as the Main Street? Because that, to me, kind of is a point we've got to figure out is, are we going to sustain two separate, not that we can prevent merchants from, on any occasion, you know, to do a lot of things in furtherance of their business. But do you all believe it is better to have basically the two groups rather than the one?
There needs to be, there needs to be one group.
And we need to unite them in one.
As an outside observer, I think the second group was formed because it was perceived that nobody was really looking out for the interests of that group. So if the first group is functioning properly, I don't think it would respond to any other.
And along with that, I mean, we heard a comment that was made by someone that we're business people. We need to operate like business people. Our job, we wake up in the morning, our job is to be the best business people we can be. I eat, sleep, breathe, outdoor 76. That's all I do. I wake up every day thinking how I can make my business the best business it can be, serve my customers, grow my business, and become a better business to make Main Street a stronger place. If I have the ability to do other things outside of that, extracurricular stuff to help out with things, I'd love to be able to do that. But when I say, hey, yeah, I'd be happy to help put ribbons or bows together, and I got 10 people sitting in my shop at 6:30 at night, I can't do that. So does that make me a bad merchant, or does that, like, there's, okay, I'm a business.
Bo, I cut you off there. You still got a question?
I just wanted to, I'm sort of behind here, but I know we've had rag cards printed every year that have the events that the town does, from the folk festival to the tartan, when we had the Scottish festival to Winter Wonderland. I mean, that's something that's on the website for the town, so that's out there. That's nothing new. And I know that I get an email probably at least once a week, and it's to all the businesses saying what's going on or what's being updated that comes from Linda. And I can share those emails if I need to, so I know that that's being done.
And just, yes, ma'am.
I'm Janice Cummings, for those of you that don't know me, and I'm going to stand over here because I can't hear a lot of you, and I want all of you to hear me. I have Creative Framing on Depot Street. This is my partner, Chris. We've been in business in Franklin for 20 years. I've worked with groups and done things, and I pay my taxes like everybody else. What I hear here is a Main Street issue, and it really bothers me because, quite frankly, when festivals are held or anything's held, it's in town. When the majority of things are done, they're in town. That's my tax money. I don't complain and I don't do anything. Now, what I did do was, and I will tell you what I did do, I had some concerns, the same as some of you have, about what the Main Street program was doing. I talked with an alderman. I voiced my concerns and I was listened to. The next thing I knew, I had a call from Linda. Linda said, Janice, your concerns are legitimate. We want to hear you. Would you like to serve on the board? And I did. Now, I served on that board because my concerns are we're not just you all, everybody, and not just Main Street. I pay my taxes, Katie pays her taxes, everybody pays their taxes the same. Everybody on the street, everybody, the Highlands Road, this Depot Street, me. And I didn't mince any words. I've only been on the board not quite a year. And I come and I participate. I participate in the things that you all have uptown that benefit you a heck of a lot more than they benefit me. And all I've heard, and I wanted to sit and listen, but what I've heard is that this is a Main Street issue. It seems like it's a power struggle. Somehow, whatever. And my thing is, bottom line, I listened to what Sissy said. Lay out what you want. Say what you want. Put down what you want. Whatever it is. Some things just can't be accomplished. Everything can't be accomplished. And quite frankly, if I don't know what do you want money? And I'm not coming from being on the Main Street board right now. I'm coming from a merchant that's outside Main Street. And I watched the Highlands Road, I watched what they did, how they fixed up their street, how they worked hard down there, and Nola Poley helped. But I don't think that they asked for any money from this town. Now, and like I said, as far as cooperation, as far as working together, bottom line, we're adults, and that's what we need to do. I need your help because I send people to you, and I buy from you. And when one of us falters, when one of us goes under, it takes a little chunk out of the solidarity of the entire town. So, all I'm saying is, I think I've heard you ask it, I've heard you ask it, the other gentleman, I've heard Cece ask it. I read those articles in the paper. If I were somebody from outside this town, reading those articles in the newspaper about that last meeting, I was quite frankly embarrassed. I wasn't there, but I was a little bit embarrassed that we're adults. We have businesses to run. And you said, you run yours, and I need to run mine. But I also need to see that we're all concerned not only about Main Street, but we're concerned about every business and every street in this town. Now, if you've got whatever your concerns are and gripes, and Chris was sitting there saying, these are legitimate concerns. They're concerns that happen, the miscommunication, the not communicating, not knowing what's going on. Then, if they're small things and they can be rectified, but there's no sense for us all to sit here and I'm like, why do we need 3 groups? What do we need? What do you want? Do you want to work together? Do we want to do? Do you want to do subcommittees? I sat here and it was like, I was going over all this thing. And we're not big business. We are not small businesses. If truth be known, and I looked it up and I read what was said about small businesses. There's a criteria. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars a small business, and Kenyon can probably help me here, 110 people to whatever. We're not small businesses, we're mom and pop business. And I would really like to see us, and I'm on that board. And I've never heard anything or anybody say in the 6-7 months that I've been on that board that nobody's welcome. And I've never heard anything unkind said about anybody, or we need benches, we need the new banners, we need a kiosk uptown. And I'm even like, wow, that's great. Here again, it's a kiosk uptown, not on Depot Street and not on the Highlands Road. So, what I'm saying, bottom line, we should be working together. We should be working to make one big fabric. And we weave together. We don't tear apart, because when we are, all we are is weaker than we were before we started.
So, I think there's a lot of various goods on that one, so how do we get there?
Well, first of all, I don't want there to be, and I don't mean any merchants, whatever, disagree, whatever. I don't want there to be a misunderstanding of what we're asking for. Nobody's asking for money. Money's never come up. That's one of the first things that, people say, well, I've been in business for 20 years and I've never asked for money. Nobody's asking for money. We can sustain ourselves. Venture Local Franklin, all their stuff that they've done has been completely, so it's my understanding, has been funded by us. Checks that we've written out for these events, Street Fest, whatever, okay? We're just asking for better communication, that's all. That's all.
Are you asking for better communication or better cooperation?
Both. Both.
I haven't heard that word.
And I completely agree with, nobody's trying to tear anything down. This is, you said it best the last meeting. This needs to be a team thing, and whether you guys want Main Street program to be the vehicle of communication between the board and all of the merchants in Franklin and that fall underneath the Main Street program, or whether there needs to be better communication. As far as Main Street goes, I don't want there's, nobody can argue, I have the greatest appreciation for all the businesses in Franklin, but this hill here, this is what people drive here from Florida, from Atlanta, from everywhere else. This is what they come to see. And I know that they hit businesses up all over town, but when you go to Hendersonville or Boone or wherever else, you go to Main Street. And a lot of the programs, a lot of the activities and stuff are meant to happen on Main Street, and we need to be a big part of what's going on, and we've been no part.
But by we, I'm having a little, I want to focus in. Is this we as a merchant or we as the downtown group? There's two different entities here.
I'm
There's
speaking
the
for
individual
merchants.
Here as merchants,
and then,
we're not here as streets
but-
or any other.
but
There
there
are
has-
merchants on Depot Street.
but there was the emergence of a group. Not saying that's bad or good, I'm saying that it's a fact, there's the emergence of a group, which obviously the Street Fest was the principal events which were handled by this group. Now, obviously, this group felt like they wanted to give more attention to Main Street. This group didn't come and ask for money, they came and, asked for collateral type things, banners, signage, and stuff like that. But obviously, there's two things here. One is, there was a need that was not being met, at least they felt like there was, and they had to pick up the pieces and do it on their own. But also I'm hearing tonight is, we don't need to have that on our own around here. We need to be all under one umbrella. And so I guess what I'm picking up is that there's just a big group that really didn't feel comfortable enough under the umbrella. That they had to go and I don't put it in a disparaging way, because anytime people put their sweat and their efforts into downtown Franklin, they've got to be commended. I'm not wanting to make anybody good and bad here, but there's some reason, obviously, there's some disconnect if on the one hand, everybody here is saying that we need to be all under one unified group, but on the other hand, it's very obvious that we're not, because we've had really at least two separate groups working. I mean, those things we can't ignore. Yes, ma'am.
I am Lindsay Kent. I'm the chef at Rosebud Cottage. And Martha and I work very hard, Martha especially, to try and promote Rosebud Cottage and promote what we're doing there. I'm sorry, I'm not a public speaker. And I think one of the things that we would really appreciate, and I suspect a lot of the other business owners as well, the reality is that we try to work with businesses around us to promote each other. We try to send people to creative framing if we know that they have something. We try, that we can't provide. We try to send them to other restaurants, and so we do try to promote each other. And in that, we do things to try and bring business to our businesses. I think we all do that. And one of the things that would be very helpful, to me anyway, would be to know, to have a clear way of finding out what are the boundaries for doing those things, whether it's a big event like Streets, or it's something where we want to.
But what you're predicating on is saying that you're not talking about just your store, you're talking about the Main Street merchants. And that by necessity is talking about, I'll call it the streets of Franklin for lack of a better description of it. And that all of a sudden gets us back to whether we're going to end up with two groups, Main Street versus Street. I mean, it sounds to me like that's where you're going.
No, I'm not necessarily talking about streets. I'm talking about any group of merchants or even an individual merchant that wants to do in the summertime, and we wanted to put a grill outside the front. Who would we go to? Where would we go to make sure that we had the permission to do something like that?
Main Street?
And okay, because for me that's become very confusing, and I'm new to the area.
I think something like that should come before the Board of Aldermen.
Well, what you're saying is, there needs to be some guidelines that you can look up and know whether you can do it or not.
Right, something
Or a single contact to go to find out, know that's something the Board of Aldermen.
Because what I feel like right now is that we have to go in 3 or 4 different directions to get the information that we need to be able to do something
What I want to know is, are we going to leave this meeting tonight with a willingness to try to pull together under Main Street and work out under the Main Street concept, work out these issues of extra need for certain areas of town, or extra need for communication, or extra need for cooperation with the town? Are we committing ourselves to doing that, or are we committing ourselves to having really two separate groups?
Mayor, I don't think we can leave here tonight with that, because I think the merchants on Main Street, the downtown merchants, would have to gather and decide as a group
Agreed.
Agreed,
yeah, we're not
to
here to
make
make
that
this-
decision.
Uh-huh.
I don't think they can just individually say yes or no based on tonight's meeting.
Joe, I think the need, the reason, say, Venture Local helped out and some of the other groups, I want to say, Linda's doing a great job with all the festivals. We love all the festivals, from Pumpkin Fest to the Scottish Tartan, which I hear is coming back, and all that. We all love them. But I think, I'm speaking for myself, and I think others, we all felt the need to have more. We wanted more. We need our businesses to grow. We need to promote, just say Lindsay wants to do a barbecue, and we all hear about it on the street. Maybe that's something we would all want to be open for, which would give her more business and us. So I guess I like sometimes an impromptu, okay, there's no festivals going on in January, let's do a so-and-so. And that, to me, is how Street Fest really came alive, was there wasn't maybe a festival planned at that time, and we would like to work.
You don't think you could do it under the Main Street
We
framework?
could, we would like to work with Linda or whoever, I don't mean to keep saying Linda, but anybody, in the town, the alderman, whoever, and do more things and become more involved. But we also, Matt works as well, Bonnie, a lot of people, I mean, Rob, Martha, there's a ton of us who really put in our time and energy. And we don't always, or I don't want to have to say, Linda, or to the town, can you do this? Can you help us? Can you do this? So we've taken stuff upon ourselves to do things too, to further enhance our business and make the Street Fest like a street block party, a party, more so than a festival, just to get people downtown. And a lot of people love picking on the square. That's been here forever. But a Friday night crowd was a different crowd that came. And
Linda, let me ask you something. Knowing your responsibilities, and knowing,
put it on you,
knowing your responsibilities, and knowing that there's obviously been a desire to have events such as Street Fest, and ever how many per year, is that, or events like that, are those something that could continue to be under the Main Street umbrella, or is it just adding too much to be able to handle?
Yes, because when Streets decided not to meet anymore, they were going to be a promotion committee under the Main Street program. And they were going to help with promotions. For whatever reason, that didn't happen. So yes, it is possible to be a committee under the Main Street program.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to say, I think feasibility, and you probably all have to agree, I went to your Friday night things and thought most of it was super. One end of the thing was music I couldn't even begin to stand to listen to. The other half was wonderful music. So there was a little bit of everything for everybody. People were out there, people were looking, but I still think it comes down to you have to have a person responsible to cut, whether you like it or not, we all have rules. It's a tough world, but we all have rules. And one person could then say to you, it's open, that's a good night, nobody else is doing something, but I need to notify the police to be able to let them know you're wanting to close part of the street, all of the street. Streets cannot just be closed at a whim 2 days beforehand. If something happens, the town is liable for a lawsuit if somebody's hurt. Rules have got to be kind of in place when you want to have a function, whatever it is, whether it's the town or not. We have to go through the police, we have to go through the fire department, DOT has to have their 2 cents, and everybody's got to have their little say. I know it makes it longer and lengthier, but wouldn't it be better to play by the rules and make sure you're not going to have a problem later that says you did not check with so-and-so and now you've done. Yeah, and I know maybe some things can be made easier too, absolutely, with communication. But somebody has to be in charge, and do you want, as a merchant, like you said, you're full of your day, wouldn't it easier to go to somebody and say, this is what we're wanting to do, and that person is being paid to do this, she knows who to contact, who to do, blah, 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 her, him, whoever, and it's done.
The procedure usually is that if you want to have something, that you would go to the director of Main Street. And then she would tell you what you need to do, whether you need to come before the board to get approval or whatever. And she can tell you that, and that's been the procedure for everybody.
That would be
And they go
perfect.
right through, that's all you have to do. But if the thing is, if you try to do something on your own, and it happened to be that if somebody got hurt or something, then you all are not liable. The town is the one that's liable.
Right.
And that's why we have the procedure that you go through Main Street, and then from there, she goes to the board and she would let people know what they needed to do, and that may be that the Main Street program can help in doing whatever that needs to be done.
Well, if we have a guideline that gives us timeline, fine, but if we say we needed insurance and we got it and we thought that's all we needed, and then we were told, oh, now you need this, so if we did go, say Linda or you or somebody, and we had somebody else doing it, that would be great. We could let somebody know of the event like a month ahead and
That's
have
right.
enough
That's what
time
we
to
need
get
to
everything
do.
done and go through what we need, as long as it's all covered.
Mr. Mayor, can we have people introduce themselves when they're speaking, so maybe there's some in the room that don't know who they are?
I'm Corey McCall with Outdoor 76. I would just like to talk about running everything through one program. It sounds great, but I'm going to tell you, I think that we're all passionate about different things. I do not think it's possible for, if I'm super passionate about making something happen, whether it's a movie showing at our shop or it's something that includes something on the street, I just don't see running everything through one particular method that's going to help streamline this. I mean, it's, the main thing that I see as a problem is why don't we already have guidelines in place? Why don't you give me a checklist so that I can, figure out what needs to be done?
Sissy, Linda was at our first planning meeting for Street Fest. There was no conversation telling us what to do. We figured that out. We went to her we made sure it didn't conflict with anything, and we went to her to reserve. We did go to Derek Rowland about the banner, and it was approved. We contacted Sam about it. Everything was approved. Nobody just jumped in and did this. We invited Linda to every meeting, so if at any point, she could have taken it back.
Are you head of it?
I'm not head of anything.
Well,
What,
some of the
what,
Facebook.
let me tell you what needs to happen is this. Irrespective of whether there is, I'm gonna call it the streets and Main Street. Sounds like there's still a lot of thought about a group who, and I'm not saying that's bad or good, I'm just hearing it, who wants to put the special emphasis on Main Street. But the town itself, we have to, if not formalize, hone, tweak, whatever we have about the banner, if we're gonna have it or not, if we're gonna let it put up, whatever we have about tents on the street, whether they be, there needs to be certain guidelines.
Yes.
And you all, I'm suggesting that if in fact we do have a streets group, you all would just like to have those guidelines available to you and to understand that you would have to endure not more, not less, but to the same. It may be that you could have a voice, you certainly couldn't have a vote. I think the vote would best.
I didn't ask for a vote.
Right, fully in the, okay, that's right, you didn't ask for a vote, that's for sure. But, I mean, is that getting right down to the nub of the matter? You felt like over the fall that it was a moving target, and truthfully, we had never had to address it. The thing about the banner came out of the blue, or the black and white or something, but it wasn't a trick play we pulled out of our hat to call it, at the 10-yard line or whatever. But in the end, it caused hard feelings, and then also some more hard feelings, I believe, about a tent or whatever. But what I've sensed going around to the different merchants is, if there is gonna be different events, and all of you seem to recognize that the first thing you gotta do is go through town hall to make sure that there's not another event that day, and to make sure you've got everything arranged as far as any, whatever the rules say on the paper about trash pickup, police pickup, authority, all of that, that you just want to know the rules and that it be the same rules for everybody.
Yes.
Yes.
The guidelines already exist. I mean, you have the same guidelines I've taken for Pumpkin Fest. I mean, so why can't there be something like that for every month? That's what the idea between, with Street Fest was. The guidelines exist. What's the?
Have they ever done?
Well, you're right, it's frustrating, isn't it?
But if they exist, why can't we?
Are they down on,
There's
in
guidelines
viewable
for
form?
street closing. There's guidelines for, for closing Main Street. Yes, there's guidelines for.
Is it easy enough to consolidate them in such a way that, I mean, it can be just right at the thing, and maybe it's already done?
This is why if you go to the.
Well, and we never
the
had.
been turned over, that she can tell you and give you those things. But no.
Yes,
But-
I was just gonna say, I mean, instead of having to go through this, it sounds like there's a lot of he said, she said, and you have to go to this person, you have to go to that person. There's guidelines, so they're not just be like some kind of permit that people can go on. You answer all the questions, where's the location, are you gonna have a banner? Do you have your insurance for it? All the things are filled out, and then you give it to the appropriate person for approval, instead of having to wait around. I mean, if
We
someone
have
burns
festival
something in my house,
guidelines.
at my house, I go online with a burn permit. So, I mean, would that not help? take
The
work
festival
off?
guidelines, just to be real,
Are for the larger festivals like the Folk Festival and the Taste of Scotland. We have guidelines for them where they come to us and tell us what they want to do, what street they want to close, where they want to put their tents and that kind of thing. When Street Fest came and wanted to put the tents on Main Street, we'd never had that before. We'd never had anybody ask to put a street in a park, to put a tent in a parking lot. We just never asked, because if we've ever had tents on Main Street, Main Street's been closed. And we've not had to worry about it.
Right.
So it was a new question for us. We haven't had
Would
that
it be different
question.
guidelines, do you think?
There's tents every single week in Pickens Square.
But they're not on Main Street. I mean,
Yes,
they're
they
not in
are.
a parking spot.
No, they're on Main Street, I've got photos.
irrespective, we have at least this season a different animal in the Main Street concept. So therefore, the board, we need to establish what we believe is appropriate, whether it be for tents, whether it be for police protection, whether it be for whatever it is. But is it burdensome on us to have that readily available? Bob?
Joe, I think you're exactly right. And one thing I'd like to remind everybody, this board makes the policies. The town organizations carry them out. Now, I think we're getting pretty close to the same situation we almost got into with another town body. And what happened, we started making them adhere to the public records and the open meetings law, and that straightened out a lot of things. Because there's no doubt where you're gonna be meeting. You have a list of guidelines. Policy decisions come through the proper channels. And this is something I think we're gonna have to look at as a board, as to whether or not Main Street is an official town function that is subject to the public records and open meetings law.
Real brief, I'm letting you speak a lot.
Yeah, I just want to say, when we're talking about guidelines for stuff, I think it's important for us to realize, are we talking about, we're going to have two different sets of guidelines, one for town events and one for privately held events, or are we coming up with something that's for both? Because I think that's a problem that has been definitely spoken amongst merchants, is that the town plays by one rules, and if we have somebody that brings an event like Street Fest, then there's another set of rules that have to be established.
And I'm inferring from that you believe it ought to be one set of rules.
Absolutely. If we're gonna have to play by the rules, then the town should too.
But I think any business owner, regardless of what street they're on, they'll advise to exercise extreme caution before considering that you're having a private event when the public generally is invited. There's really no such thing.
When we say private, like venture local, that's not a
Yeah.
private event, that's a community, that's what
If-
we
if
refer to,
it's
not
a-
private, but a
it's not really
non-town sanctioned.
It's not such a thing.
I just want to say that if we're doing these rules, I want to make it be so that it's effective for every section. So that if the Highlands Road wants to have their, an event, it's fair for them, or Depot Street, or Main Street, whoever. I think we need to look at it that way, because what if they want to have a street fest? What if they decide to work together and have a street fest? So we need to do it that way, take that into consideration. Because we're sort of talking about Main Street here.
Yeah.
But it's because this happened with Street Fest.
That's right. That was
We wanted to do another event in addition to what normally happens. So I'm saying the Highlands Road can choose to do that too. Those merchants can bond together and have a street fest if they want.
But do we want to do that? That still gets back, that still gets back to the ultimate first question is, are we two groups or are we one?
Well, I have a question, and this is.
Or three,
just-
or
this-
four.
But this is just purely a question, okay, number one, and somebody, I have a couple, I've just made a couple of notes here. I mean, obviously there's a division here in groups. Do you work under Venture Local? Did you get a 501(c)(3)? Are you licensed? What do you work under? You know, do you have a working board or non-working board? I'm totally, and like I said, this I guess I'm asking from being on the Main Street board and not from being a merchant, which I'm just totally thinking that what's going on in this room is totally a Main Street power and control thing for me. And I don't mean to be ugly to anybody because I refer people and I want you to refer, but are you operating under something? Do you have?
I don't believe that the group who's been doing the Street Fest have any formality as far as formation, anything like that. Nonetheless, it's a group of merchants bonding together for a similar purpose.
But who's liable for if something happens? Is it
The insurance policy that we paid for.
You all have an insurance
We pay
policy?
the insurance policy.
Okay, so, but that's what I'm asking. If you got an insurance policy, are you licensed?
No, you don't have to be.
You don't have to be licensed.
Licensed businesses.
Okay, I'm just really
Yeah,
confused.
I just, it seems like there's so much focus on who are you, who's your head leader, what group are you representing? And it's not like that. There is no, somebody more on Facebook that's a leader than our group than anybody else. I mean, we're just merchants that are on Main Street.
It's not even merchants. Matt Bateman is
We're
the-
business people, we're taxpayers.
Do you?
You know, we're just concerned citizens. That's
young people
who
with
we are.
educations and passions.
Well, obviously, at some point in time, there's gonna have to be the decision as to whether it's under one umbrella or not. We've gotta get there. We really do. If it turns out, if it's under one umbrella, all of these issues that we're talking about blend in together. If it's not under one umbrella, then there has to be a set of rules and a set of guidelines.
But does that mean we can't have a group like, say,
No,
Venture Local
I don't-
Franklin?
I don't believe that means you cannot. I think the question is, what I understand is Venture Local is a whole different concept than what I would call the streets of Franklin. Okay.
Okay, well, can we not have, like, I mean, the streets of Franklin?
Can or should do really to discourage any type of good activity for the town. However, you have to understand there's just one Main Street. There's just one, all of that, and there has to be the keeper of the gate, so to speak, which is the alderman. So if in fact there's gonna be another group such as the streets, then you certainly have to play by the rules, but you also have a right to know what the rules are.
And I wish we could just erase the whole streets thought in people's minds. We're not here.
Which would get us back to be all under the same umbrella.
Right, that would be great.
But right now, the minds aren't there on everybody in this room. Well, I don't know if I want to start taking a straw poll on that right now. I really don't, because it's certainly
There's,
going to be
I think the
fine.
reason why you guys might have that perception is that there is a lot of dialogue that exists with the merchants on Main Street. We're all in very close proximity to each other. We all communicate very, very well. We're not strung 2 miles apart. There's a lot of dialogue that exists, and all of us, after the Street Fest happened, the Street Fest issue happened, all of us talked, and a lot of issues came up where we said, wow, you know, this is something we need to talk about. And you, as the gatekeepers, it's the reason why we came and spoke to all of you. We did sit down with one person and say, I mean, there was a bunch of things we needed to discuss. You know, the communication issues, you know, some of the things we talked about, we'd like to see collectively, we'd like to see more that the aldermen do to focus more on the economic vitality of the community. And that's Depot Street, Highlands Road, everything. I mean, look at the agendas that you guys have talked about for the past 4 years. There's not a whole lot of economic vitality discussion.
By you
That
guys,
kind of stuff is what.
by you guys, and then, you know, your mind is not wedded to being under one umbrella. Now, I'm gonna stop right here just a second, because I'm out here, I had no idea how this was gonna develop tonight, and we're here playing this on the fly, but I certainly want to give the board every opportunity to call me on anything that I've said or anything that I'm thinking that I might be trying to lock us in on our end. It's not like we have this plan before we meet tonight, so I don't want to be out ahead of the board on these things and later find out that I was overreaching or whatever. I'd rather we all stay on the same page. Anybody got anything they want to add, delete, subtract?
One of the things I was just gonna say, and I don't know you're aware, like the veterans come to us to close things, the different singing things. Everybody still comes to us to make sure it's clear, to make sure they can get a street closed. You know, all of them just know that there's one source to go to, here at the town hall, and that way they can clear. Now, if there's gonna be a problem with that, we'll have to work around it somehow. We're also gonna have to work around whether it's banners or where are we going to put a banner? Where are you going to advertise? Because if we start and the hospital wants to and so-and-so wants to and it's all the, where are we, if we do it for one, we're going to do it for everybody. So we all need to collectively think that we're all one team here. Where can we put stuff that will look good, represent the town well, and advertise and still be able to do it? It isn't a matter of, and the banner deal, my understanding was an honest mistake on Derek's part when he read in the wrong book, the wrong ordinance, the wrong whatever, and came back and said, whoops, I was in the wrong book. Again, everybody makes a silly mistake, it was never whatever, but again, you guys want to advertise and you need to advertise, but I don't know whether what you're thinking it now is going to be the best idea. We've even said to Martha, when Sissy and I went and talked to her, come up with alternatives. All of you start thinking of where maybe you'd like to advertise. There's several places here in town, even out here on the lawn, the old town hall. We need to advertise, people want to be able to see what's going on, but we need to sit down and think constructively what's going to look best. Do I make sense? I don't know.
Okay. Do we as the board prefer it all be under Main Street?
Well, I think that if you can, when you start having 2 or 3 different programs, you start splitting everybody up again. And the Main Street program has been there, it's sanctioned by the state, it's run, you know, they tell us what to do, you can't go even with the town. But I think you're gonna be, you can work at these simple problems, you're much better off under one group. I mean, first of all, all your decorations come from Main Street. Cleaning up the river came from Main Street. All the new banners are coming from Main Street. That money would not be there if it weren't for Main Street. So if we want to take down all the decorations, we want to take down, getting ready to put 8 new benches on Main Street. People that donated and all that. Take all those off. Main Street has a purpose. I think right now what we're in is a personality.
You're arguing something that's not being contested.
Pardon?
You're arguing something that's not being contested.
What is it? I'm not
This is a
following.
Main Street program.
And the consensus that I hear is that people want to be part of one strong, central.
I'm not hearing that at all. No, I'm not.
We're hearing some, but then.
I'm not sure that, I'm not,
It's split.
what I think, you know what I think I'm hearing? I think I'm hearing that in theory, that's what they'd like, but it ain't happening, and they're not confident that it's gonna happen. Is that not where it is? So now what we're down to is, if the group, the Main Street group, and we love it, gets their heads together and they're saying that if they'll meet us halfway, and if they'll start trying to figure out that it goes both ways, it's a two-way street, and if we can all give it one big push to get back under that Main Street umbrella, let's try. And we can try. And we can figure out what needs to happen, whether it needs to be the committees or whatever, and give it the best shot. You may come back to us and say, we want the autonomy of the streets of Franklin. At that point in time, then, I think what we're down to is the set of rules so that the streets of Franklin knows that they would expect there would be enough credibility from the streets of Franklin that they can play by the same rules as all the other festivals. Where we can't allow just anybody in the world to show up and say, we're a festival right now. At some point in time, we have to, but we wouldn't want to do it on a group of that stature. But we got to first figure out whether we're going to be under the same umbrella and try to make it work, try to bring this marriage back together, or if it's going to have to be, yes, ma'am.
Mayor Collins, I'm Sue Weathers. I'm president of Macon County Art Association. We run the Uptown Gallery, which is on Main Street. I want to follow up from what you have just said, and also what Mr. Tillo just said. What you just said was deja vu all over again. For those of you who weren't involved, we, as Streets of Franklin, voted to try to be a committee of Main Street. And that, as Linda said, for whatever reason, did not work. And so that's where Streets of Franklin has been resurrected as this group of merchants coming and trying to fill the void.
Get you one.
Sissy, you said that there was support from the state and federally, and that Main Street, the Main Street program, has a mandate. This is my concern, that this limits what Main Street can do.
Okay, now wait, here's where we're at. Now tell me if we're anywhere, except I'm about ready to almost wrap this thing up tonight. Because I feel like the next decision is gonna have to be whether we are going to try to work under the same umbrella to get the representation, to get the results that we want, and then try to do that. But if there's a decision that that's not going to be there, then at that point in time, we have to really see about going down the road about what the rule books are, the playbooks are, the regulations are, the communications are, the cooperation is. But it's a whole different game plan dependent upon whether we're under the Main Street umbrella for these type of events, or is there much else that we can really hash out? Very, very briefly, Rob, because I'm using a lot of time.
There's two clear things here. First off, I think there's the delineation. One is the whole festival thing. That's or whatever Venture Local's doing. Protocol for events, things like that, that's a completely different topic. The other thing that we discussed was the lack of communication. If we're going to, these are two completely separate issues. There was a lack of communication with the festival, which I think segued the two things together, but they are two very different issues. Protocol for events, period, done. Second thing, improve communication between merchants, whether it be Depot Street, Highlands Road, wherever. improve communication, because I think, I don't want to hurt any feelings here, but I think there is, on Main Street, from our dialogue, there is a general disapproval with the performance of the Main Street program as a whole. I know they do some incredibly beneficial things, decorations and things like that, the events that come, but overall, our communication, and it all lies with that. Communication needs to improve. If it starts with there being very good lines of invitations, or however ways to get us involved with the Main Street program meetings, just like Amy said, we don't want to vote, just a voice. Let us know what's going on. We found out about Ruby through the Franklin Press.
Okay.
I mean, just communication. That's all we're asking for.
Yes, sir.
I'm Linda McCabe of North Carolina Mountain Maid, and I'm on Main Street. I've never had a problem with communication with Linda. She has sent me emails. She comes by the store. I have never had a problem with Sissy or anybody. And I don't have time to do what Linda is paid to do. And therefore, I think we should be under her.
I agree. I think communications is a problem on both sides, not just the town.
If communication is a problem, it's usually both sides.
Well, I'll say something about communication while we're talking about communication. I have a downtown merchants email list, and that list is the same that it's been. It's sent out to everybody that's on the list. Well, when this streets organization decided to come back, I'm not on that list. They send, whoever sends them out, they send emails out. The only way I know is if another merchant happens to forward me that list. So let's don't talk about, it's a two-way street on communication.
Right. Okay. Yes.
So if I haven't been in a streets meeting, it's because I didn't know about it.
There haven't been any streets.
I'm Christine, I own a
Well,
shop
whatever kind of
on
meeting you
Highlands
have.
Road. I own a shop on Highlands Road, and I like to be involved. I was involved with the Chamber of Commerce, and I've been to eventual meetings, and I like to be involved with other businesses. But what I'm hearing is that it seems like a lot of people did not know that the Main Street program existed. They just found out lately. So why is it that if they didn't know that it existed, or if they did, why didn't they have the interest of?
They didn't feel like that the Main Street program was fulfilling the needs that they wanted. I mean, is that a fair summary? Whether it's true or not, but I think that's how they felt.
But if they knew it existed and they wasn't doing the job that they thought they would have to do, why not go to the meetings?
So do you roll up your sleeves and get in that same group and try to make it better, or do you start your own party?
Or find out what is it that we're doing?
You know where we're at, Bo?
That's what I did.
Do we try to work from within with the Main Street group, and as underneath at the Main Street meetings, hash these things out and figure out if we can do it? I would love to try it. I'd love to give it a good, honest effort to see if we can hammer together. If it turns out over the winter or whatever we can't, and there still wants to be that Streets of Franklin group, then after good faith of that's where they need to be, then me, and I hope the board would do all that we could to support that group, which didn't conflict with, with other higher goals. But we still need to figure out if we're willing to get together at the Main Street program level to try to get the final result from underneath that umbrella that we're working through that will satisfy everyone. Yes, sir.
You've already said you don't want a straw vote. How do you want that answer?
I think that, it's very obviously that, Rob and Corey, there's a few leaders of the groups who have been doing most of the work towards the Street Fest, who would be the ones most likely to be in touch with those who have so far shown to be a third party, so to speak, of Streets of Franklin. And I think it'd be incumbent upon them to go ahead and work with their group to come and to get some. Now, you can tell me, I'm just throwing that out there because I just think that, I think that, there's some natural leaders.
For the record, I don't want to be known as a leader. People have asked me to speak. This is something that everybody said, I don't feel like talking, you talk. You say, I don't want to say it, you say it. So I'm saying it. So I was president of Streets. I resigned from president of Streets because I didn't feel, okay, first off, this was my understanding of streets. You guys I accepted the nomination as president of streets because I was under the impression that it was a group completely separate from the Main Street program. It was an organization for merchants to get together for us to talk about how we can make our businesses better. Not about how we can plan festivals, it was about how we can make our businesses better, talking about marketing, social networking, or improving our businesses, buying, balances, cash flows, things like that. It wasn't any of that. We wanted to talk about festivals, and everybody wanted to talk about just things that I didn't feel that I had a complete misunderstanding of what streets was about. So my agenda was not accepted, so we weren't getting anywhere. So I said, hey guys, I'm obviously not the right person for this role.
That's what you're doing, what you're talking about, which is a good thing. Is there not a group of you that can go together and do that?
There might be. This is a completely different issue, though. This is things about.
But that's one issue that would be different.
Oh, I would love for that to come back. I would love for a group of us, especially now. We're getting ready to take on a much bigger role than what we have right now.
You may not be able to do that.
We may not be able to do that. I would love to be able to, but this is a completely different issue. We're just asking for, and I think personally, I don't know if people agree with me. I would love for us to be a part of the Main Street program. And some of the other points are valid. Well, why haven't you been a part? We're not invited. I don't know. I don't feel like as a merchant I should have to go out hunting down information about the Main Street program. I want the Main Street program director to come in my business a couple times a year and say, hey, what can we do? What kind of stuff is going on? Here's your Pumpkin Fest flyers. We'll see you in 6 weeks. Okay. I'm being honest. I hate going on this tangent, but there needs to be dialogue. There needs to be. If this is what maybe I have a misunderstanding of what the program is about. I don't know. I could be.
How was the small business Saturday the radio on? Did you take part in that?
I did. You know what? Because I had a shop of 20 people. My shop was packed. I couldn't walk out the door. I would have loved to have been there. I had 5 employees in there, and every single one of us were pulling shoes and fitting people, and I was slammed.
Here's one thing I'm sort of hearing, and I think this board is going to have to make a decision of whether Main Street is a supporting organization or whether it's the deciding body of what goes on. And, hang on just a second. And another thing is I'm a little concerned that if we focus right down to one particular organization, are we in a position of stifling diversity and innovation?
Absolutely. What I think is this, Bob. I think, first of all, I hope that we can try to work under the Main Street umbrella and work out our differences from within together, because we've obviously got differences. However, Bob, if there is a sizable group, call them Streets of Franklin, who do bond together, they're merchants, they're in town, we don't want to stifle that in any form or fashion. And if, in fact, we are not going to get to the nirvana of working under the Main Street program, and we're going to end up with 2 separate groups like has been in the past, then I think the board owes it to that group to cooperate and to communicate and to have the rules and everything.
But that may not be a bad thing.
It may not be.
We were talking about a while ago that Main Street cleaned up.
But the first part of the meeting, the first grunt and groan was, let's all be under the same tent, correct? That's the first thing you picked up on. Right.
Well, I think we don't want redundancy.
There you go.
He's not.
There you go. What you got to decide, though, is whether you're willing and whether you believe that the town and us are willing to get together to make our peace under the
There's
umbrella.
only one way to do that. Let's try.
Joe, I think they need to try that first, and I don't want to give a second option at this point. I want them to give an option.
On everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, both sides. And there needs to be accountability for us, and there needs to be accountability on both sides.
It needs to be honest to everybody.
Communication and cooperation.
Well, yeah, like I say, I've been backing up here trying Okay. Carol? Yes, ma'am.
Are we like supposed to pick sides? What are we trying to do?
What I'm going to do is think about this. I think that we're gonna wrap it up here in a minute. I think that if you all don't know when the damn next Main Street meeting is, it's your own fault. And if there's gonna be an agenda out there, it's gonna be available to you. And I'm gonna expect the next meeting, we may have to pull a few more chairs, and I may even show up. I've never been to one. Just a second. And that would mean that there's gonna be some rolling up the sleeves and trying to see where we can go in the same car, so to speak.
I want to say one thing, it's on our agenda, quickly, and we talked about it. It's like a crawl, okay? This is a positive thing. It's where we may take a month, it may take 2 months, it may take 4 months, but where each of us as business owners go and spend 30 to 45 minutes in everybody's shop and learn what we do, who we can refer people to. And then we know each other. And
Maybe
then,
so, but that's not what we're here for tonight.
no, I know, but that's what I'm saying. If this is what we're doing and not taking sides, then we can do something like that.
Joe, the
Yes.
5:30 meeting is problematic.
I understand that. I took some blame on that one. I took the
No,
blame.
I mean the.
When's the next Main Street meeting?
We normally don't meet in December, but we can meet in December.
And if in fact there is gonna be a
It's
meeting
at
in December,
5:30. It's at
you have to
5:30 on the
be
second Wednesday night of every month.
deaf, dumb, and mute not to
Right.
know where it is.
It's been meeting there in
Is
this
there a
room for
particular
years.
problem you're having with Main Street that you feel
Oh,
is
yeah,
affecting your
there-
business?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's affecting your business?
Not with
Okay.
Goshen, but with Toby, shit.
All right, so unless my mark here, I sense that as we're gonna leave here in about a minute or two, you're gonna know about the next Main Street meeting. And you and us are gonna try to get together and start working out whatever issues it is that we need to work out inside that same car, under that same umbrella. And see where we go with it. It may be. It may be, yeah. Now, it's gonna be real important and real brief.
I just want to say that I don't think that even if it's decided that Venture Local or Streets or something like that will be an organization, I don't think that will mean the exclusion of wanting to work with Main Street.
You're right. You're
Okay,
exactly
so
right.
I feel like everyone's saying it's either or.
You're right.
But I don't think it's either or. I think it's we all want to work together one way or the other.
Yes.
Anybody got it?
Last call.
Last call.
I think it's been good to talk.
Fred. Oh, God, the lawyer.
So, I just want to compliment this function tonight because, you got, what, 60 people representing a lot of different business interests, different locations. They're speaking their mind. Anytime you get people together wanting the same objective, hey, you get there, we'll work it out. If you get together, you'll figure out a way if you want to. So, thanks for calling it. Thanks for the town board's time. I encourage everybody to keep the dialogue and keep it
We'll get you notice of the next Main Street meeting.
Yes.
Fred Jones. I'm the-
Thank you.
That's right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, I don't know, this is no, not at the, is it a new one on the
We ended up raising $608 for the